Howdy neighbor, how is your garden growing? Today in my garden, I want to give you a ton of tips to help you attract butterflies to your garden. My first tip for you is going to be add host plants. Add lots of host plants to your garden and you are guaranteed to start getting butterflies. Now you may be asking, what is a host plant? Well, a host plant is just a plant that a butterfly puts its egg on, and then when the egg hatches, the caterpillar eats that plant. But most butterflies, they can only eat certain plants, which is why the butterflies are looking and looking and looking to find these plants to make sure that their baby caterpillars have something to eat once they hatch. And this, I'm telling you, as soon as you start adding host plants, it's like the game changer. Nothing brings butterflies faster to your garden than host plants. Now you may be wondering yourself, but what does a host plant look like? How will I know if it's a host plant? Well, here's the really cool thing, is host plants come in all different sizes. They can be wildflowers, shrubs, ground covers, vines, and even trees. But depending on what type of butterfly you want to attract is going to depend on which host plants you're going to pick. Well, and depending on how much space you have. Because I don't know about you, you may not be able to add a ton of host plant trees, but you can add a bunch of host plant flowers. Which is why when it comes to host plants, I would keep it simple and start with one of these or all of these 3 host plants. Number 1 is gonna be milkweed. If you are interested in attracting monarch butterflies to your garden, you know those big, beautiful, orange butterflies with black stripes and white spots that float through your garden. Milkweed is what you need to be thinking about. And what's so cool about milkweed is there are so many different varieties. In the United States, we have over 100 native types of variety. And in my home state of Florida, we have over 20 different types of milkweed that you can find that are native. But most of the time when you go to the store, there's only a few that you're gonna be able to find. And the 2 that are the easiest for most people to find are things like swamp milkweed and butterfly weed. But a couple of tips and things for you to think about when it comes to milkweed is milkweed tends to be a tall type of wildflower. It comes in a variety of different colors, from whites to pinks to yellows and oranges. And hands down, this is one of the places that most people start when it comes to butterfly gardening. And if you're interested in learning more about milkweed, I have an entire series that you can watch right here. My number 2 recommendation would be to go with something like a passion vine. Passion vines also, so many types, so many different sizes, so many different ways, everything from like a corky stem passion vine, which has like an English ivy look, to maypop passion vine, which actually puts out a fruit that's edible, or you can go with the non-native type of actual passion fruit passion vine. And all of these will attract butterflies to your garden. You can get things like the Gulf fritillary, which is a fast-moving, medium-sized orange butterfly, or you could get the zebra longwing, which is a black butterfly with pale yellow stripes. Both love this plant, and there are other butterflies too. And what can be great about using a passion vine is if you don't have a lot of space, having a vine that goes vertical can help you maximize how much you can get in. And if you like the idea of having something that you can eat but also attracts butterflies, consider adding something like parsley so that you can get black swallowtails. Black swallowtails, well, their caterpillars are just too cute. This is a great one if you have a vegetable garden to take a little bit of the space and just add a bunch of extra parsley so that you can pull in more and more butterflies. And pairing a butterfly garden with your vegetable garden, I think is an amazing thing. I actually find that butterflies are flying and flitting around my tomatoes, peppers, sweet potatoes, lettuces all the time. So putting their host plants nearby can be really amazing and create even more enjoyment for you if you're in your vegetable garden. And now you may be wondering, how many of each host plant? Well, it's going to depend on what you're picking. When it's things like milkweed, more is better. But when it's something like a cassia and it becomes a tree, well, one's probably enough. But I think one of the big things when starting a butterfly garden is picking multiple types of host plants to add in to your butterfly garden so that you can pull in monarchs, Gulf fritillaries, cloudless sulfurs, black swallowtails, as many things as possible into your garden is one of the best ways to have butterflies for your entire garden season. Now you may be thinking, host plants, but what about all the flowers? I need to have a lot more. But here's the thing, most of your neighbors probably have flowers that will work for your butterflies, but they haven't added those host plants. And just a small space. I did a project in this video right here where I started a 8-foot by 4-foot butterfly garden, which focused a lot more on host plants. And just that simple change with my native flowers started to change my section of the neighborhood. My neighbor, Mr. Cliff, for over a decade had been planting tons of flowers to attract butterflies, but he and his wife noticed a huge difference once I started adding more host plants. So just know that you don't need to have a ton of space. A simple 4-foot by 4-foot area is plenty for you to start attracting a ton of butterflies. The next thing you're gonna wanna add is flowers. Lots and lots of flowers, but not just any type of flowers. You want to add flowers that have lots of nectar. See, when we talked about host plants, it was all about food for the babies, you know, the caterpillars. But once they're butterflies, they don't eat leaves, they need nectar, and flowers is how they're going to get it. Now, to list off all the flowers that can work, well, it's a huge list. But there are some things that you should look for that are definitely going to attract butterflies. First up is bright colors. Butterflies are attracted to bright colors like reds, purples, yellows, bright pinks. But the more variety of colors you can add, the better. The next thing you're going to want to do is add flowers that have different shapes. Everything from daisy-like shapes to tubular trumpet flowers to flowers that have little cups. These different flowers and different size flowers will help allow, well, different size butterflies get to that nectar. And yes, as it might make sense, big butterflies tend to like big flowers and little butterflies tend to like little flowers. Sometimes they just swap around and they'll just take what they can get. And if you walk into the store and you're still really overwhelmed about where to start, well, guess what? Sometimes they just label the plants as good for attracting butterflies. So those are some of the things you should look for. But if you were looking for some very specific plants to add to your garden, these would be my top 3 picks. Number 1 would be sages. There are so many sages with so many different types of colors, from reds to pinks to whites to purpley blues, and all of them are a great choice for attracting butterflies, both small, medium, and big. I really like mixing sages with milkweeds because one of the challenges with milkweeds is that early in the season, the caterpillars tend to eat it down to absolute sticks, which isn't the cutest looking thing. But if you mix in a tall sage next to your milkweed, the butterflies can still lay their eggs and the caterpillars can still eat the leaves, but the sages kind of block it a little bit so that there's color and it still looks really pretty and you don't need to worry about your milkweed looking like sticks for a while. The other great thing about sages is they have what I would call a more tubular shape. Sounds very radical. Has a tubular shape that's really good at holding nectar for your butterflies. And if you live in Florida or the Gulf Coast region, one of my favorite types of sages is tropical sage, and you can learn more about it right here. Now, my number 2 pick for flowers to add to your garden is going to be a lantana. What's great about lantanas is their flowers are cup shaped, but they're also in what's called an umbel, think umbrella, which gives a nice space for butterflies to land and then be able to drink nectar from lots of little cups all around the lantana plant. Lantanas can be used as a ground cover, or they can grow into small shrubs, or they can even be in medium shrubs. Pairing this with the sages, your milkweeds, and maybe a trellis vine with a passion vine on it is going to give you a lot of variety and a lot of consistent color in your growing season. Here in my home state, we have 2 native lantanas, and if you want to learn more about lantanas in general, you can go ahead and check out this video right here. My number 3 recommendation for your butterfly garden to add a lot of flowers is to pick something like Rudbeckia. This would be like your black-eyed Susans, your orange cone flowers, and though technically not a Rudbeckia, but in the Echinacea family, would be purple cone flower. These add a lot of concentrated bold color to your garden. Plus the petals are really big on the flowers, so they give a great landing space for your butterflies. I really like adding these in the forward section of my butterfly garden so that there's a lot of color to pull the butterflies in as they go their way towards their host plants. What's also nice about Rudbeckias is they're often perennial, which means even if they die back in the winter time for you, they will potentially come back the following year. My next tip section for you are some of the watchouts and common mistakes people make early on in their butterfly gardening. And number 1 in those is adding herbicides and pesticides to your butterfly garden. Your caterpillars are these cute, squishy, little, adorable bugs, and they cannot handle chemicals being sprayed on them or around them or on the leaves they're going to eat. So to ensure that your host plants do what they need to do, you need to keep the area chemical free. Now you have host plants, you have tons of caterpillars, but the question becomes, how do I keep them safe from all the predators that are in the garden? Well, one of the simple ways that you can do it, no, you don't need to do anything extreme, is it's actually really about just plant design. Mixing shrubby plants with your stick-like milkweed allows there to be spaces for your caterpillars to hide. Also, mixing plants that are host plants in something like a frog fruit that has lots of teeny tiny caterpillars on it can oftentimes keep things like wasps and lizards distracted away from some of your bigger caterpillars, like your black swallowtails that you want to have more of. But just know, just like your butterflies are part of nature, so are predators too, and they're also looking for something to eat. So it's not unusual, especially when you first start, for the imbalance to happen of having a lot of caterpillars, attracting a lot of predators, and then we have some sadness. But just keep going. It will start to balance itself out. The predators will spread away and your butterflies and caterpillars will keep coming and coming and coming. Well, the sun's coming out, the butterflies are waking up. And if you're looking for more tips and more ideas on plants to add to your garden, go ahead and check this video out right here. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.